So, so you've made it really apparent, very clear to me, something that I already know. I guess that I've forgotten at times, that all I really need to do is focus on the relationship between me, and all the things that I've put there, the best of them will be showing up. Instead, I guess I've been worrying about, and not even realizing it, but the indicators are there. So I guess I've been thinking more about what's wrong, what you think, where you're at with it, how is it relating to you, and then coming from that angle.
Well, we can see how that would seem relevant when you're not in the vortex.
Yeah.
But when you're in the vortex, experiencing unconditional relevancy, then...
So I guess the indicators are...
Here's the most important thing, from not only from what you're getting and giving from this, but everyone who's listening in. Here's the most important thing that we've come to as a result of this conversation that's come this far. We did say to you, make your vortex the only thing that's relevant, which means make everything else irrelevant. But what happens is, once you consistently do that, and you hold your girlfriend or anyone as your object of attention from inside the vortex, then you can only see the aspects of her that are relevant to where you are. In other words, unconditional love, you can't see. If you're really tuned into who you are, you can't see a flaw in someone. And if you see a flaw in someone, it's not their flaw.
Yeah, it's my flaw. So I've been thinking that I'm in the vortex way more than I am. And only because the indicators are showing, they're coming up, that I'm not in the vortex.
Well, we don't think that you are ever not feeling good and announcing that you're in the vortex when you don't. We think that you're in often and sometimes not in. And we think that indicators of not being in the vortex just makes you want to be in more. Why do you think we're having this conversation? This is the most leading edge conversation we've ever had about being in the vortex, or about unconditional love, or about relationships. This was a really meaty conversation that we just had, that we would not have had if you had always been in the vortex.
Yeah.
That's why you're here and we're here. In other words, we sent you out as a guinea pig. Or as Jerry's friend calls it, an Abraham-hamster.
Yeah. Well, I just want to feel better. I feel pretty good, and it's obvious, but I just want to feel better, and that's why I'm reaching for ways to feel better more often. And I'm getting a little light shined on the fact that I do bless being out of the vortex, because I know the bounce. I know the contrast serves me well. I know there's eternalness in it.
That's really the piece. In other words, until you're faced with the life or death isn't the right terminology, but we wanted to be dramatic so that you'd hear it in that way. Until you're faced with the sort of life or death, which is like in the vortex or out of the vortex choice of something, you often do the lazy thing. And Esther experienced that with this book launch. In other words, it seemed rational to make the book launch and the way it related to important clients, it seemed rational to make that important. But the discomfort of being out of the vortex on such an important subject was so severe that it was like life or death. It was like give it up or die. The discomfort was so strong. And of course, we're being overly dramatic a little bit. But when you come to, when a situation makes you feel enough discord that it causes you to put things in their right priority, it's always worth it.
Yeah, well, you have taught me so well that the small amount of time that I'm out of the vortex, I appreciate and I understand, but it hurts.
Well, here's the thing. This is the reason why we want to talk to you, and we want to talk to you until you get it, you and everyone else, is because your blessed vortex is going to keep moving into higher and higher frequencies. So there's going to be plenty of out of the vortex moments on your way to being in the vortex. And we want you to make peace with that. It has to be all right to be out of the vortex. And so if we can say to you, it has to be all right to be out of the vortex, but it's just so darn painful to be way out of the vortex. You see, being out of the vortex isn't a big deal. Right. It's staying out that makes it. It's like being a little hungry actually makes dinner taste better. But if you are hungry for a really long time, it gets to be quite a drag, and then it can be really detrimental to your physical apparatus. And so we're talking about extremes. So being out of the vortex is no big deal. Making a career out of it is the problem, you see. And so, but when you get it, that being in the vortex feels really good, and being out of the vortex makes you put more in it. And when you put more in it, then you want to be in it more. And when you want to be in it more, then you're more focused. And when you're more focused, you're more alive. And when you're alive, you feel better. And when you lose your focus, which you often do, then you're out of the vortex. You want more focus. And then when you find more focus, you're in. So then it becomes like the trampling that we're talking about. You let the down be as important to the bounce as the up. In other words, it's all part of the process. And you don't make it be this statement or proclamation of worthiness or righteousness on you or anyone else. You say, I'm alive, and I'm a creator, and I'm a molder, and I'm doing just fine, and Source loves me. Here's the most important thing to remember. Source unconditionally loves you even when you're not in the vortex. Isn't that interesting? That's why you feel bad when you're not. If Source was mad at you for not being in the vortex when you weren't in, you wouldn't feel bad. Did you get that?
Yeah.
If Source was not in the vortex when you went out, you wouldn't feel the separation. So can't you afford yourself the same benefit? So when you're not in the vortex, here's what you say. Well, at least Source still loves me. Source refuses to get out of the vortex just because I'm out of the vortex, so I should give myself the same break, you see. And then say, Source and I have an agreement. My inner being was born, when I was born into this time-space reality, my inner being stayed in the vortex. When I expanded out into this contrast, my inner being stayed in the vortex. My job is to come out occasionally. My inner being's job is to stay in always. So, since I'm just doing what I was born to do, why am I making it such a big hairy deal when I'm out? Answer, because it felt so good when I was in that I don't feel good when I'm out. Conclusion, don't stay out very long. Don't stay out very long, but don't condemn being out.
Well, it's really fun moving in, too.
Well, that's what it's all about. It can't be fun moving in. You can't have the bounce up if you didn't have the bounce down. In other words, it really is that simple. It's all part of the process. And so...
Well, I've heard you say that moving into the vortex is where life is lived.
That's where the passion of life... And you know why? Because as you come into the vortex, you come into the fullness of all that you are, you see.
Yeah.
But if you came into the fullness of all that you are, and that's all that you are, and it's all that you are, and then it's all that you are, and it's all that you are, and it's all that you are, and it's all that you are, it's all that you are, it wouldn't be enough in time.
It's sort of boring.
It would be boring.
Yeah. Well, I get it, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
And we appreciate your troublesome girlfriend. There could not be a better relationship.